It's your buddy Bob. You're on the Rock and Roll Travelogue as we seek out the great pop and rock acts from the 1950s to 1990s. Today we're in Philadelphia. It's a very important city in the history of pop and rock music, especially in the early days. Our first stop is at 4548 Market Street. This is the scene of American Bandstand. That's the TV show featuring Dick Clark and teens dancing to the latest hits. The show was in Philly originally in 1952, and then by 1957 it became a national show shown on ABC television. From this location, Bandstand moved to Los Angeles in 1964, and this is the building in Philly today. Well, when Bandstand left, when they left Philly for Los Angeles, it had a really serious effect on local record company Cameo Parkway Records. This record label had several local Philly artists who found national stardom because they were on the Bandstand show. Performers like Bobby Rydell and Frankie Avalon, the Orlons, Dee Dee Sharp, Chubby Checker, and more recorded for Cameo Parkway. Now, after the move of Bandstand, the record label began to suffer. A last-gasp effort saw them sign a young Bob Seger to his first recording contract, and they also had Question Mark and the Mysterians with their hit song 96 Tears. You remember we chronicled that earlier on a Rock and Roll Travelogue episode in Michigan. Well, anyway, by 1967, the label was essentially defunct. They were located on one of the primary Philadelphia streets, Broad Street, and this street is now known as the Avenue of the Arts. Another major record company in Philadelphia was Philadelphia International Records in the same building as the now defunct Cameo Parkway at 311 Broad Street. It was formed by Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff in the early 1970s. It was Philly Soul. They were in competition now with Motown in Detroit. This new genre of soul music derived from the gospel, doo-wop, and soul of the 60s. It featured string, brass, and percussion like never before in rhythm and blues. Well, Gamble and Huff have a part of Broad Street down the street from the studio named for them. Gamble and Huff were helped in the creation of the Philly Soul sound by Tom Bell, who is being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Musical Excellence Wing this year, 2025. Major artists were the OJs from Canton, Ohio, by the way. They had the Backstabbers and Love Train. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, who was the one-time lead for Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. They had If You Don't Know Me By Now. And later, McFadden and Whitehead were on the label. Ain't No Stopping Us Now, their big song. The building which housed Philadelphia International and before that Cameo Parkway was damaged by fire in 2011, arson suspected, but it's since been rebuilt as a high-rise condominium. It's named the Art House. And if you go inside in the lobby, lots of artifacts of both Philadelphia International and Cameo Parkway. And by the way, if you've got $1.5 million or $15 million, it'll get you one of these condos with great views in Center City, Philadelphia. We're going to walk down Broad Street right now. We see the Philadelphia Walk of Fame with many stars with a star in the street. Every one of these stars has a Philadelphia connection, starting with Sister Sledge. Who can forget We Are Family? Will Smith, born in Philadelphia, went to high school here. More on him later. Joan Jett. I love rock and roll. Pictured right here. The Stylistics from Philly, You Make Me Feel Brand New, and Can't Give You Anything But My Love, their big hits. And by the way, that song was later covered by Prince. Couple more, the Orlons with Wah Wah Tusi, and Tammy Terrell, who teamed with Marvin Gaye at Motown on several duets before she died very young of a brain tumor. Lastly, Schoolie D was a rapper and a hip-hop artist in the 80s and 90s. His big hit, PSK, what does that mean? We don't have time to show them all, but here are a few more local Philly stars with stars on the Walk of Fame. The Delphonics, Teddy Pendergrass, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. More on Teddy later. One of the originators in rock, Bill Haley with Rock Around the Clock, a Philly native. Chubby Checker, more about him later. Daryl Hall and John Oates, more on them later. The Tramps, Disco Inferno in 1976. McFadden and Whitehead, the great disco artist. Evelyn Champagne King, she had Shame in 1977. Early rock artists, Danny and the Juniors with At the Hop, a #1 record. And one more Philly great with part of Broad Street named after her, Patti LaBelle from South Philly. Lady Marmalade in the mid-1970s. What a great song that was. Well, over to the neighborhoods in Philly, and we're going to stop at 1453 North 52nd. This was the site of the Adelphia Theater. It's now the Mount Zion African Church. This is where two students at Temple University in Philly met for the first time at the Adelphia during a musical competition. They were Daryl Hall and John Oates, who went on to become great successes together and are now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. By the way, they do want to be known as Daryl Hall and John Oates, not Hall and Oates, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Speaking of John Oates, here's his high school. It's Upper Darby High School at 601 Lansdowne Street in Drexel Hill. It's a Philly suburb. By the way, the singer Jim Croce, a little bit older than John, also graduated from this high school. Speaking of high schools, here is Overbrook at 5898 Lancaster Avenue. Two big personalities went here, but first, so did the Delphonics. They had La 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 Means I Love You in the late 60s. Len Berry, mid-60s with 1, 2, 3. He was earlier the lead singer of the Dovelles from the early 60s. Rosetta Hightower, the lead singer of the Orlons, with several hits in the 60s. Dee Dee Sharp had Mashed Potato Time in the 60s. It was a dance hit, and she was eventually married to Kenny Gamble, that we talked about a few moments ago. Well, the two big stars from Overbrook are Wilt Chamberlain, or Wilt the Stilt, one of the top basketball players of all time. The other big star is Will Smith, the Fresh Prince. He's the star of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, had hit songs too, is a member of the DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. It was a hip-hop group that had several hits, including Boom, Shake the Room in 1993. As a solo act, Will Smith had major hits with Getting Jizzy With It and Wild Wild West. This was in the late 1990s. Now, one last stop for today in Philly. Here's 901 South Broad, where the Philadelphia High School for the Creative and Performing Arts is located. This is where Boys to Men went to high school. Boy, the 90s were kind to these guys. They had hits like End of the Road, and I put them on the musical map. I'll Make Love to You and On Bended Knee. That would be #1 hit as well. One of the most loved acts of the 1990s, Boys to Men, a part of Broad Street next to the high school named for them at the corner of Broad and Carpenter. Well, a big day in Philly today, and there's more next time on Rock and Roll Travelogue. I'm your buddy Bob, saying until next time, good heart and stout luck.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.